Hi everyone. I am absent today, so I thought this would be a really great way to put some learning out there for you so that you are making progress with our Unit 3 informational and explanatory text um, resources. So I'm sure that you are 100% focused on the task at hand today, and you are going to clean up my room really well, and I'm going to come back and everything will be wonderful. Let's just jump into it here. What I want to talk to you about is this strategy for writing paragraphs, body paragraphs in an essay using Peel. P-E-E-L. And so just as a reminder, you have this in your notes. You should take it out. It might be in your Unit 2 notes, although technically it should be in your writing section, I suppose, or even Unit 3 notes. But when I gave it to you, we were in Unit 2, so I'm pretty sure that's where you put it. So anyways, the P stands for making a point. The E stands for using evidence and backing up what you're thinking with support. The E then, the next E, stands for explanation, meaning that you are explaining how the evidence supports your point. And then the L stands for link, and I'm not going to talk about that one too much today, but it's the part where you go back to kind of the main question that you are writing about, all right? So I'm going to show you this paragraph here that was written by a student of mine last year. And the student did not know about the Peel process, and so his paragraph is not as well written as it could be. And so we're going to fix it together, but let's read the paragraph here first. Minnesota is a great place to live because of the weather. The summer has humidity. Sometimes it would get to 100 degrees. In the winter, it gets all the way to below zero. In the fall, the temperature ranges from 70 degrees to 20 degrees. In spring, it ranges from 70 to 30. When I was about 3 or 4, my Uncle Richard had a yard about 1 to 2 acres. He had a big pile of leaves about 10 to 20 feet wide and 5 to 6 feet tall. And then he put a rope swing up, and we feel about 8 feet in the air on top of the leaves. He kept that pile for about a couple of years, then got rid of it. And that's the end of the paragraph. And so there are a few pros. The length of the paragraph is nice, and some of the word choices are nice. Like ranges is nice, humidity is a good word. Yeah. The biggest problem with the paragraph is that it's very unorganized. And so we're going to look at how to fix that. I highlighted a few colors here. Minnesota is a great place to live because of the weather. I feel like that's probably this student's first point. Their overall essay is probably written about how Minnesota is a great place to live, but this paragraph is specifically focused on the weather, okay? And then in green here, we have a lot of evidence, although it's written kind of informally. There's no citation. It doesn't tell us where the source, who the source was, and that sort of thing. There's some facts here, though. And then after that, there's this story that he tells about his uncle, a reflection memory. So what I want you to see right away is that every time that we make a point, we need to expand on it and go back to our main point. Minnesota weather is lit. I think that was a suggestion the kid had last year. So anyways, if we go back here, the point is that Minnesota is a great place to live because of the weather. The first point, or this is the topic sentence, I'm sorry. The first point he tries to make from there is that the summer has humidity. Sometimes it would get to 100 degrees. And so we need to talk more about that idea before we move on to talking about winter. So let's expand on summer before we talk more about winter. The second thing I wonder about is why is it so great to be in 100-degree weather and be in humidity? This evidence here that he gives kind of seems to contradict the main point, the topic sentence, which is that it's a great place to live. I don't like 100-degree weather. I don't think most people do. They feel sticky and sweaty, and although sometimes it seems like it might be nice, it's really not. So this might need to be situated or reworded as well. All right. In the second part here, he talks about how the winter, it gets all the way to below zero. And again, I'm just wondering what is so great about below zero weather? I don't think there's a lot of people who think that's so great. And his main point is that it's great to live in Minnesota because of the weather. So I hope you're seeing a pattern here. In the fall, the temperature ranges from 7 degrees to 20 degrees. What is so great about this range of temperature? Why? What is the big deal about that? So there's just not a lot of explanation there. We need more explaining. In the spring, it ranges from 70 to 30. That's all he says about spring. I mean, it's just this weird list of unorganized sort of facts. So at the end, he has this really great attempt to kind of tell a little bit of a story, and I really like this story, but you know, it's not about spring. And that's weird because he just mentioned spring. And then to lead into the story about piles of leaves that usually signifies fall. So I feel like it's just in the wrong place. The story is in the wrong place. So we're going to rearrange. Here we go. I kind of broke the paragraph apart sentence by sentence or idea by idea. And so you'll see again, this is the first point, P for point. Minnesota is a great place to live because of the weather. All right. And then we have the stuff about summer, winter, fall, and spring. All right. And then we have this random story. So we have different parts now that we need to kind of play around with. So I don't like that he says that summer has humidity. It gets to 100 degrees because like I mentioned, I want people to understand why Minnesota is a great place to live and why the weather's so great. So instead, I'm going to reword it and just change kind of the connotation a little bit. The summer gets hot. This means several activities become available, such as water skiing, swimming at the beach, and using the slip and slide. All Minnesotans soak up the few short months we get warm weather. All right. So now I have my first piece of evidence. The summer gets hot. And then I'm going to explain why that's important. This means several activities become available, right? And so now I have done the P, the E, and the E part of Peel. Okay. But I have another idea. I have another reason that Minnesota is a great place to live. Instead of talking about the winter getting below zero, I'm going to rephrase that, and I'm going to add information by using the word additionally, and then I'm just going to state winters are really cold. So that's my next piece of evidence. I'm trying to just highlight the E here, okay? And then I'm going to explain it. Why is it a big deal for winters to be cold? When snow begins to fall, everyone runs outside to build snow forts and have snowball fights. There is really no other season like winter, all right? So there it is, my little cheeseball explanation as to why winter is so great. And by the way, I hate winter. Hate it. Okay. But I'm pretending like I like it for the sake of this paragraph. Okay. Now, we move on and we look at fall. In the fall, the temperature ranges from 70 degrees to 30 degrees. I hated this sentence. This tells me nothing about why fall is such a great thing. So I instead reworded it and I wrote fall is my favorite. So that's my next piece of evidence that makes Minnesota such a great place to live. And so now I would throw that story in there because the story really supports fall. And so I would maybe reword some of the story too, but we'll just keep it the same for now. If this was a real thing, I would change some of the wording here, okay? And then the last part, in spring it ranges from 70 to 30. Well, I would add in my evidence, as I'm sure you're expecting me to do. Last but not least, spring is always a great season. So I have my new piece of evidence. Instead of talking about this weird temperature range, spring is always a great season. Kind of vague, but then I get specific. The temperatures also range during this time, and it can be rather rainy. However, it's a great time to plant new trees and watch a garden grow. Okay, much more specific. So now we have this whole paragraph, and if you look at this paragraph as a whole now, we have our main point at the beginning. Minnesota is a great place to live because of the weather. We have 4 pieces of evidence that we're going to give. The summer gets hot. Additionally, winters are really cold. Fall is my favorite. Last but not least, spring is always a great season. After each piece of evidence, we explain it. We explain it. And so that should be the pattern that you see in a paragraph when you write a paragraph, okay? The linking part at the end, you know, to link it at the end, you would go back to kind of summarizing this point up here, and I'm just going to improvise here and add a link. But you could say something like, for these reasons and many more, Minnesota's weather brings many new people to this great state. Okay, so again, I'm reinforcing the idea that it's the weather that makes Minnesota so great. And I close off this thought and I move on to the next paragraph. Okay, so this is what we want 7th grade paragraphs to look like. And I understand that this is very overwhelming and daunting, but we're going to help you. Your job right now is to absorb as much of this as you can, ask some questions, get the support that you need, and start figuring out how you can make your paragraphs look as wonderful as this one. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.